the green light. I will call the Finance and Personnel Committee to order. Today's date is Wednesday, May 4th, 2022. Time is 6:15 p.m. Notice of this meeting has been duly posted at City Hall. We'll start with roll call. Myself, Chair Dan Stevens, am present. Vice Chair Tom?
I'm here.
Tom Smith is here. Stephen Knott is en route and will be joining us shortly. Item 2 is consideration and action on the minutes from the previous meeting.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
I will second that. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the previous meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Next, we go to item 3 on the agenda, public input. If anybody would like to address the Finance and Personnel Committee, now is the time. You may approach the podium or reach us on Zoom. I'm not seeing anyone on Zoom. Second call for public input. Third and final call for public input. Hearing no public input, that section is now closed. Consideration and possible action on the following items. Under Finance, we'll go to item 4 for the March 2022 Omni Center financials. And for that, we are going to Karen Marquardt. Thank you, Karen.
Sure. Yeah, nothing seems out of the ordinary. The only thing that we did recognize is that the Omni Center is doing phenomenal compared to they were last year.
Do you have a microphone that we can, are we getting this?
Is it not working? How about that? Is that better?
It's a little better,
Okay,
thank you.
sorry about that. Nothing that seemed out of the ordinary except for that they just are really doing a good job and they're.
And I'm reading this, we are actually in the black now,
That is correct.
operationally speaking. When's the last time that happened?
It's been a while, it seems like, right?
Oh, well, you're doing a great job. Tom, do you have any questions for Karen?
Oh, I just know it's been busy up there all the time. Just about every time I walk by, there's something going on every weekend. So that's good.
They're on all cylinders.
Yeah, they're doing it. Yeah. I'll make a motion that we accept the March 2022 Omni Center financials and place them on file.
I will second that motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the March 2022 Omni Center financials, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Omni Center financials are approved and we will place those on file. Moving on to item 5, the March 2022 general fund financials. Again to Karen.
Again, nothing out of the ordinary. Everything seems to be pretty much status quo there. Unless you have any questions.
I do
Do
not
you
have
have any questions?
I do not. I'll make a motion that we approve the March 2022 general fund financials and place them on file.
And I will second that motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the March 2022 general fund financials, please say aye.
Aye.
Financials are approved. Now we go to item 6, the Gunderson Health System parking ramp financials for the first quarter of 2022. And Karen.
Yeah, again, nothing out of the ordinary. We did just receive our most recent installment from them. One of the questions that recently has been proposed regarding the ramp is when we are out of that lease, and that is the agreement, and it's in 2028.
So our enterprise fund portion will end in 2028. Okay, please note for the record that Alder Steve Knott is now present. And Steve, we are on item 6 for the Gunderson Health System parking ramp.
Roger that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, did I just hear that this ends on 2028? I think I've asked that before. So this is when we'll be done with this deal then? It won't be that long anymore.
No, too much longer.
Okay.
So I don't know if this would be for you or the city administrator, the revenue that normally would come from that, now this is its own separate enterprise fund. we have to find a way to replace that, or is that just its own separate thing? Okay, is there any questions or discussion?
I'll make a motion. Yeah, that we approve the Gunderson Health parking ramp financials for 2022 first quarter and place them on file.
A second.
Motion by Alder Smith, seconded by Alder Knott for the, to approve and place on file the first quarter 2022 Gunderson Health parking ramp financials. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. These financials are approved. On to item 7, discussion and possible action on the police department body camera storage payment options. I see online we have Chief Ashbeck with us. Chief, would you like to give us a brief intro on what's going on here with the body camera storage?
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Yanner. As you can read in my memo, essentially, we did the best we could to try to estimate how much storage needs we would have when we started this body camera program. And it's taken us about a year because many of our videos have retention lengths of about a year. There's many that are much longer than that and some that are shorter than that, but quite a few are a year. And so I started noticing that we were going over our allotment, but I thought after a year, some of those would get purged out. But as we're finding here, as my memo states, we're just accumulating much more video than we ever expected, whether that's body cam video, third-party video from businesses, photos and whatnot. So we have quickly realized we need to take some kind of action to either purchase additional storage, like a capped storage as I detailed in the memo, or move to the unlimited storage. And frankly, I don't think the capped storage is economically feasible. We're just going to continually going back, trying to add more storage over time. So I've tried to lay out in my memo there the 2 options if we go forward with the unlimited, as far as whether we pay for it all up front or over a period of years, and where that money can come from. So I'm respectfully requesting that you entertain approving moving to the unlimited storage. And I guess I personally would prefer we just pay for upfront instead of every year having to come back and pay for it, but I will leave that up to the will of the committee.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I will go over to Alder Smith.
Thank you. Chief, I guess, or maybe finance, whoever did, if we, option 1, sounds like probably what I would prefer to is, I agree with the chief. I think it's best just to pay it up front and get it behind us. If we take it from the police designated equipment fund, that basically takes care of all the money in there, right?
Correct. Yes.
Or actually, it sounds like we're in a hole a little bit, 300 something bucks. So do we anticipate any other times between now and the end of the year that we would want to tap that for some other reason? I suppose we don't know that, but I was just saying, if we're using it all up, then we don't have any funds to use if something did come up. So are you comfortable about using it all now and just living with not having a balance in that account?
Yeah, at this time, I don't have any anticipated needs in there. But I guess I would add, we are placing 2 vehicles and a speed trailer that's no longer functional on the auction here next week. So there will be some additional monies. Granted, that will come into the general undesignated equipment fund, but that will bring in, I suspect, a decent amount of money. So if some unanticipated needs do arise later this year, there will be some new monies coming in.
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't think about that, so that's a good perspective. The other thing I was thinking is I like the idea of doing it up front, just because I don't want to change the budget. I see an option 2. We have to go back and look at redoing the budget again. And I just think that we should try to minimize doing that if we absolutely have to. It sounds like option 2, it says here, would increase. Option would require an increase in the budgetary line item for the technology budget. And I prefer to stay away from that. So my thought is option 1, but that's my perspective. So thank you, Chief.
City Administrator Eric Rindfleisch.
Thank you. My overall recommendation would be, unfortunately, contrary to what Tom just said, your option 2 does allow year 1. We're not going to have to redo the budget. It would come out of a police equipment replacement fund for 1 year only. The problem is that even beyond year 4, this becomes an annualized expense. And like any other annualized expense, we should find a way to start budgeting for it going forward. It's going to be a general fund expense at some point. And while we're having a challenging budget that we're facing this year, it's an appropriate ongoing operational expense that, in my mind, for years 2 and beyond, because beyond year 4, once we're buying data out, data storage offsite, we're always going to have to buy data storage offsite. So this is not an expense that's going to go away.
Okay, so that I was actually initially leaning the same direction as the city administrator. So I don't know if this would be Chief or Karen. So it looks like the cost is the same either way. It's just, do we want to take the whole hit this year or spread it out over 4 years? If we spread it out over 4 years, just the future value of money would suggest that we'd be better off to take the smaller hits and just smooth the budget over in a even budgetary manner. If I'm reading this right, but I did see that there was on this quote, there was $3,200 or $3,199.20 in savings. Was this on one particular plan or another? And was that, or did that apply to both options?
It applies to both overall. Essentially, when I reached out to our Axon representative, she commented that, because I had commented about the price tag, she commented that she would apply for a 10% discount to see if we would get approved for that. And she was successful at getting that. So that 10% is what you see there. And whether we pay it all up front or annualize it, it's the same.
All right, so that would then reaffirm my thoughts that if we can just put this in the normal budgetary cycle and not wipe out that fund balance, and we'll still have that for other uses. And just I know it's never fun when you got to try to make changes here halfway through the budgetary year, but when we rolled out this program, we knew that we were treading into new territory here, and you don't know what you don't know, and reviewing that program, it seems like that the amount of storage that we had to do is significantly more than what we initially thought. That they have to have the original stuff, and then they have to have things that are with people's faces blurred out and everything like that. And I'm still a big believer that the having that video provides for better service to our customers. So if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do, in my opinion. So my opinion would be to lean on the second option. I think it costs the same, and over time it would probably be cheaper for us. But so Alder. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
I would just say I'm open to moving to second if we guarantee that if there is no price increase, it's locked in, guaranteed. So it wouldn't come back later saying, "Oh, the price has gone up." I mean, it is locked in. So now we're just spreading it out over today's money, right? Okay, I guess I didn't realize that. I was thinking that we were just pushing it back. But so with that discussion and your guys' input, I'm fine with option 2.
Alder not.
I'm sorry, can I just make a comment?
Sure.
If Alder not wants to yield,
Yeah, sure.
go ahead, Chief.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree, Tom, that I believe it is locked in at that, so there should not be any increases in that price. The only thing I would add is I noticed they did quote the next amount due in December of 2022. Now, I suspect I'll be able to get the invoice in December and maybe pay it in January. But worst case scenario, if they say that's not what this contract entails, I may have to come back to the board to see if we can pull that 7198 from equipment replacement fund again, but I will certainly try to push it into January.
Old or not?
Okay, so I'm still trying to get this clear in my head. So what I'm understanding, and tell me if I'm wrong, is if we go with option 2, we'll be paying off the rest of year 1 using the designated equipment fund from the police and locking ourselves into budgeting from the technology budget for years 2, 3, and 4. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's correct.
Correct.
That is correct. Okay. All right.
All right, Alder Smith.
Yeah, and maybe Karen or I guess we don't see implications of that with the budgeting for next year and the technology fund. I mean, we'll just have to come up with the money no matter where it is, right? So I was just curious, and if we're going to change that budget, I still gets back to my problem of changing the budget. I don't like doing that, but now we're just pushing it into the next year and the next year. I assume we'll find the funds for it.
As I was saying, it's an annualized cost, so we'll have to find the funds. That's the cost of doing business when we're using body cams, as Alder Stevens mentioned. You know, there's data storage for that. So option 2, yes, it would be an expense that the council approves to come out of that fund as an unbudgeted expense for this year. And then as Chief had mentioned, we'll probably have to look at, do we do a budget amendments for that? Keep in mind, we do amend the budget, usually in February is when we do that to reconcile all the expenses. And that's that big omnibus motion that we make to balance that. So it can be done at that point in time too.
Okay, thank you.
Again, to old or not?
Yeah, so assuming, it sounds like we're all in support of number 2 right now, or option 2, but before we have a motion to move on, I would like this to definitely not be on, actually F&P are, you know, I don't want this to be on the consent. And the big reason I say that is if we're going to approve this, I think we need to have a discussion at the common council level too, because we truly are locking in a non-discretionary budget line for 3 more years. That is a must pay if we go this route. It's just a comment, if that makes sense. I think that the full council needs to discuss it.
I mean, you could just as easily pull it at that, but I don't see any reason why we
Sure.
couldn't just put it on the non-consent.
Yeah.
Go.
That's what I'm recommending.
That's
I
reasonable.
think it makes sense, yeah.
All right, so do we want to make a motion?
I will move that we approve option 2 as discussed.
I'll second that.
Is that specific enough? Eric, is it okay? Motion by Alder Knott, seconded by Alder Smith to approve option 2 as presented by Chief regarding the police department body camera storage options. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, motion passed. And with that, that will end the finance portion of this agenda, and we'll move on to personnel. Item 1 on personnel is recruitment update from Human Resource Manager Amy Franston. Amy.
Good evening. Yes, we had, last month, we had 2 positions of our full-time positions filled, and that was our accounting specialist in finance by Larry Jensen and our full-time firefighter EMT Zachary Zalanda, who started last month. We are in the midst of filling a number of other positions in police and fire right now. We've had interviews today for firefighter. We're looking to create a new eligibility list going forward. And we've got a couple of other interviews for fire lieutenant and police sergeant also scheduled for this month. One thing that's not on here that you'll see next month is we are also looking at a candidate on our police officer eligibility list to fill that position as well. So we'll have some updates on that as to what those status is as of next month.
I suppose if you promote from within, that's creates a constant flow of new work for the HR department. So thank you for that. But any questions for Amy?
I just love the idea that the list is so small. I can remember when we had a long list. So, good job.
All right. Thank you, Amy. Item 2 is adjournment. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion from Alder Smith, seconded by Alder Knott, to adjourn at 6:36 PM. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.